Let's talk about feelings. No, not your feelings. I'm talking about the thing that makes buyers buy. People buy based on emotion, and then they justify that decision with logic. Maya Angelou famously said that people will forget what you did, people will forget what you've said, but people will never forget how you made them feel. If we know that in sales, the question that most salespeople cannot answer is how? Meaning, how do you do that? How do you make someone feel different just by speaking with them? Well, I'm going to provide you that answer. But I have to tell you that if you are not making your prospects feel any different, if they're leaving the conversation not being moved in any way, shape, or form on a deep personal and emotional level, you're not going to get the business. It's just a fact. Again, going back to the question, how is this done? Well, I'm going to show you. And you knowing the answer to this question and being able to implement it in your sales process is the very thing that is holding you back from the success you desire and are capable of. In this video, we're going to look at how to sell to emotion, how to trigger the emotional response, and we're going to look at it objectively. How to do it and what you can do to start doing it immediately in your sales process. And hey, if you haven't yet subscribed to this channel, please go ahead and do so. And if you have, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. It means more to me than you'll ever know. I appreciate your support, and don't forget to like the video. Let's get started. How do you make the delivery of what you are presenting stick with the prospect in a way that makes them feel it on a deep personal and emotional level? Well, I'm going to first show you what you should not do. I'm going to tell you the thing you need to avoid, and it might be the thing you're doing right now. And this thing you want to avoid is the old way of selling. And it goes something like this. Go ahead and spout off features, benefit, features, benefit, features, benefit, and then ask a closing question. That does not work. Now, data has shown that that method, that old approach, it's actually working less and less. And in fact, prospects are fleeing from that. So that sounds something like this. I'm going to role play for a second. I'm going to pretend that I'm a homeowner's insurance salesman and I'm selling insurance. This is what you don't want to do. And this is, if you do this, will not elicit an emotional response. So I'm the insurance agent and I'm talking to the prospect. So yeah, Mr. Prospect, this policy, it's going to do everything that you want it to do. As you said, it's important for you to have homeowners insurance coverage. And in the event of an emergency, you're going to be totally covered. No matter what happens to the home, you're going to be covered. The home's going to be repaired. And it's all for a low cost of $2,500 a year, right? That's the old way. So all I did was I said, hey, Mr. Prospect, everything you said you wanted, this policy is going to do. You're going to have coverage. You're not going to have to worry about any expenses. If anything happens to the home, you're going to be covered, right? I'm checking all the boxes. But am I doing anything to make that person feel like, wow, this policy is going to do it for me? No. So I'm going to give you an example now of the way to do it. So here's an example, homeowners insurance salesman. I'm going to be pitching or selling a prospect on homeowners insurance, but look at the difference in how I do it. Okay, so Mr. Prospect, I want you to imagine for a second that your home was flooded and it was in such bad shape you and your family could not live in it. Now, on that day, how important is it to you? On the day where you and your family no longer have a roof over your head, how important is it to you to know that the home you love will be restored to its original and pristine condition? And while that's taking place, you and your family have a roof over your head, and that expense to cover that cost of the roof over your head, you're not going to have to worry about. This policy is going to take care of it. How important is it to you to have that in place? Prospect says it's really important. Well, that's what this policy is going to give you. And it's for a low price of $6,000 a year. What did I do there that was different? A couple of things. Number one, I asked him a question. That's number one. I delivered in the form of a question. Number two, I made him think about a future scenario where he would be losing something. Where in that scenario, what I'm selling, my product, will come in and prevent him from losing anything further. Loss aversion. People buy, or people are more motivated based on a fear of loss than they are for a want for gain. So in that first example, when I was telling him all the things he's going to gain with what I'm selling, it sounded good, but it's not entirely motivating, right? It's like me calling a millionaire at 5 a.m. and saying, hey, I can get you $20,000, but you have to act right now. They are going to say, okay, yeah, no thanks, click. But if I call that same person at 5 a.m. and I say, hey, I can prevent you from losing 20 grand, but you have to act right now. Now their interest is piqued. Why? One was about gaining, the other was about losing. People operate more from a fear of loss than they do for a want for gain. So what's the message here? The message is, number one, deliver in the form of a question. Make them think about what it is you are asking. Thought-provoking questions, they make the prospect think. They also trigger an emotional response, but they also, when you ask very good thought-provoking questions, it makes the prospect respect you more. When they respect you more, they begin to trust you more. The more they trust you, the more they will share truth with you about their buying motives, meaning the things that they need you to say for them to want to buy, and they begin to share truth with you about their decision-making processes. I want you to think about a marriage counselor or a therapist. Those practitioners are perfect strangers with the patient when they first meet. But why does a patient, after a few sessions, open up and feel so vulnerable and so honest with that counselor or therapist? One thing is that the counselor or therapist asks very good, thought-provoking questions that makes their patient think about things in a way they did not think of before. It makes their patient look at things from a new vantage point they didn't really consider before. Because of that, the patient will respect the counselor or therapist more. Because they respect them more, they trust them more. And because they trust them more, they begin to be more honest with them. The same thing happens in sales. Deliver with questions. And then again, step 2, loss aversion. You need to be focusing on showing the prospect how their current status, the status quo, their current situation is not sustainable. Number 1. Number 2, loss aversion. How is your product or service going to prevent future losses from happening? It can be financial losses, it can be material losses, it can be a loss in reduction in workforce, whatever it is you're selling. You need to ask questions that put them in that future scenario, that future state, so they can feel and see what their situation would be like without your service or product. Your priority, you should be creating a list of 20 thought-provoking questions. How do you make them thought-provoking? Step 1, make each question open-ended, meaning they start with one of these words: who, what, when, where, why, or how. An open-ended question is thought-provoking because it requires a thought process in order for the person to answer. I'll give you an example. If I ask you, did you eat breakfast this morning? You're going to say yes or no. That's a closed-ended question. But if I ask you, what did you eat for breakfast this morning? That's going to force you, in order to answer, to think back to your morning. And if you did eat breakfast, it's going to make you rethink or relive. You go into the fridge, pulling out the eggs, all those things, and then you answer. Well, I had eggs, toast, and some orange juice, right? It's a thought-provoking question. Your objective, create a list of 20. Start out with 20. If you want to do more, but 20 open-ended, thought-provoking questions. Make them questions that you're confident your prospect hasn't heard before, and even more confident that your competition is not asking. From there, as you get more comfortable doing that, because it does take practice, start investing your time into figuring out questions that make them think about future losses that they can avoid with your product or service. Ask questions that make them realize that their current situation isn't sustainable unless they acquire your product or service. If you do this, you will not only trigger an emotional response, but you will quite literally make that prospect feel a way they didn't know they could feel until they met you. They're going to feel a way where they are glad they met you, they want to do business with you, and they want to do business with you now. And that is what you want. If you found this video helpful, please like the video, subscribe to the Cleverclosers YouTube channel. Here at Cleverclosers, we teach salespeople how to sell smart, not hard. I appreciate you guys watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.